All right, welcome everybody. We are so excited for you to join us tonight. This is our very first broadcast that we're doing open to all of our E4D supporters, and so we are so excited that you're taking the time to spend the evening with us, especially, it's a August evening, one of the last few of summer, and so, we know that there's so many other things you could be doing, and we really, really appreciate that you're taking the time to join us. What we're going to talk to you about tonight is a little bit more detail on our election plans, what we're doing to make sure that science and evidence-based decision-making are an election issue, and more importantly, how you can help us do that. So we've had a really busy few months. Just before Parliament recessed, we had a lot of traction with the Liberal Party putting forward a science integrity motion in Parliament that all of the opposition parties voted for. So we're really hoping to take some of this momentum that we had and turn it into action during the election. So we're trying to make science an election issue. We're trying to get the parties to make some strong commitments. And I think, as far as I know, this is really the first time I can think of that we've really had the scientific community, the research community, really mobilizing around science issues during an election, and that is so exciting. And so we are really, really excited to have you guys here and be a part of it tonight. So we're going to start just with some quick intros of the team. So I probably should have introduced myself at the start. If you don't know me, I'm Katie Gibbs, the Executive Director of Evidence for Democracy, and I'm based here in Ottawa. And then Axa is going to introduce herself.
Hi everyone. First of all, can everyone hear me? Okay. So hi, my name is Axa. I have been working with E4D for about a year. I volunteer or manage volunteer activities, and I've also been helping out with all the organization stuff that E4D's been doing since last August. And I am very sad to go. This is sort of the last projects that I'm going to be helping out with. And then we've got an awesome new team member. Her name is Suman. She's going to be taking over all the organizing stuff, and she's also going to be the point person for volunteers, so all the volunteers will get to know her really well. And I'll pass it over to Suman now.
Hi everyone, I'm Suman. I've been with Evidence for Democracy for about 10 days, so it's been very much a baptism by fire sort of situation. I'm really keen to get to know those of you who decide to don the cap of ambassador and all the other volunteers out there. I've got some pretty big shoes to fill with AXA leaving, but I'm really excited to take on this role. And now I'm going to pass this off to Sue. She's been one of E4D's lead volunteers for quite some time.
Hi everyone, so I'm Sue. I'm a research associate in biology at the University of Ottawa. I've been with E4D volunteering with them for the last year, working on the True North Smart and Free website, helping students who want to do some writing and do some summaries of the articles for that, and I've recently become a Science Pledge ambassador.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Okay, so I think we're going to start. Does that sound good, Katie?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll start with the agenda. I'm going to start screen sharing. So please let me know if this works for everyone.
Oh, I wanted to add one other thing that I forgot that's on the slide there, that I'm going to be fielding people's questions. So if at any point you have questions during the presentation, you can email them to me at katie@evidencefordemocracy.ca. You can also tweet at us or ask them on Facebook. And our amazing comms coordinator, Maria, is monitoring social media, and she'll be passing your questions to us. And so we'll be answering them at the end, but make sure to ask them throughout so that we have them.
Great, so I'm just going to leave that up there for a few more seconds. So if people have questions, like Katie said, email them to the address that's at the bottom of the slide. So I'll leave it up for a few more seconds and then we'll jump into the agenda. Okay, so I think we'll get started. Hopefully everyone can hear me, not if you can. Okay, great. So the main objective of the broadcast today is to give you guys an overview of our election plans. So what I'll first do is give you an overview of all the things, some of the campaigns that have already begun, some that are underway, and the main focus will be the Science Pledge. So we'll give you a few more details about that and how you can become a community leader to promote science in your community, especially in the next couple of weeks in the lead up to the election in October. So, okay, election campaign overview. As you can see, our approach to the election is multifaceted. We not only want to engage candidates and offer solutions and find out where the party stands, but first and foremost, we want to inform the public. So the ultimate goal here is to make science an election issue. We have been already doing this by engaging political parties and candidates directly, and we're also trying to do this by educating and engaging individuals. So for the, I guess, first umbrella here for informing the public, we've got a few campaigns. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Silence of the Labs. So those of you who are aware of this campaign were volunteers who organized this, and the turnout that we had for this was fantastic. So we had been working with volunteers since, I think, last November to host screenings of the CBC documentary Silence of the Labs. We launched this campaign, like I said, in November. For those of you who are not familiar with it, I'll just give you a succinct overview. So Silence of the Labs is a CBC documentary. It's actually an episode of the program The Fifth Estate that aired in January of 2014, I think. And it highlights cutbacks in research programs that resulted from reductions in federal funding. And a few scientists are highlighted in the documentary, and it also provides details of how closures of research facilities and scaling back of monitoring programs has created a gap in evidence that affects our health, our environment, and our prosperity in general as Canadians. So here at E4D, we thought that this documentary would be an excellent tool to generate awareness about this changing funding climate, And we thought it was a great tool to show people that this is a detriment to Canadian public interest science. So what we did was we urged volunteers to hold screenings in their communities, and we provided them with tools, including a how-to guide, promotional materials like posters, amongst other resources. So, like I said, the feedback that we had and the engagement we saw from volunteers for this campaign was fantastic. Here are just a few stats about it. So we had over 30 screenings across Canada, and these screenings were quite varied, actually. Some of them were, in volunteers' homes where they just invited their families and friends, and others were at really big events. So some were partnerships with public organizations, and others were also done in partnership with public institutions. So there was one in Toronto that was done with the School of Public Policy there. We also had one in Vancouver where we collaborated with SFU and their coastal science program. So we were able to create enough momentum that we had local and national media coverage about this campaign, and it was a great tool to sort of disseminate to the general public the changes in funding climate that's happened over the last couple of years. And so we're with the next campaign that I'm going to talk about. The idea there is to use Silence of the Labs as sort of a starting point. So it was great to watch this documentary with other E4D supporters and create that awareness, but we felt that it wasn't enough. So we kind of went one step further with our True North Smart and Free website. This is what Sue mentioned earlier. She was the lead on this. She was the one who sort of helped volunteers compile incidents and summarize them. So we've launched this website recently, and it goes one step further to inform the public about what has happened to science in Canada, and it's an interactive website that tells stories of various cuts to science, incidents of muzzling scientists, and a general, disregard for science and evidence in the public policy development process. So hopefully you've already seen this website and you had a chance to peruse it. If I'll go to the next slide. This is generally what the layout looks like. So you can see that there are categories there for, you can look at incidents based on environment, health and safety, Canada's prosperity, accountability, and some positive incidents where science actually made a difference. So this is our sort of the first approach towards informing the public. And we just created this website so that people are aware of all the funding cuts, not just the few that were documented in Silence of the Labs, but the extent of this is quite remarkable, which is what we tried to capture through this website. The next thing, before I move on to offering solutions, the idea behind True North Smart and Free is that it's kind of an entry point to be reminded of what has happened and why it matters. So you can check out the site and then help to spread the word by sharing it on Facebook and Twitter so more people can see how public science has been eroded in recent years. And what I mean by that is, here I'll go back one slide. So here, each of these are individual incidences, and if you scroll over one, it will take you to a pop-up page, and then you can share. There's Facebook and Twitter buttons there. You can share each incident with your friends and members in your community. If there's an incident that specifically resonates with you, then we've given you the tools to do that. So next is offering solutions. What do we mean by that? The first thing is what Katie, I think, also mentioned this in the intro, is meeting with MPs and leaders' office staff. So for the past few months before Parliament recessed, we have been working with the federal political parties in an effort to get them to commit to two key policies in their election platforms that we think will strengthen science. Our recommendations were for them to, one, create a parliamentary science officer or a similar position, because we used to have this, I think, prior to 2008, which is when the office was canceled. And the second is to bring in a government-wide communications policy to allow our government scientists to speak to the public. And it was really exciting that the Liberal Party included both of these commitments in their platform. And we've also heard since from the NDP that there will be some strong science commitments in their upcoming platform as well. The next thing under this umbrella of offering solutions is finding out where the parties stand. So we've done this, sorry, one sec. I'm going to see if we're missing a slide. Sorry. Before I go into engaging candidates and communities, within the Offering Solutions umbrella, we have our Science Pledge. So the Science Pledge is really a tool that we're using to highlight the importance of science and evidence-based decision-making during the lead up to the election. We launched the pledge at a press conference in Parliament Hill. I think it was in mid-June, where Elizabeth May, you can see in the picture there, Mark Garneau, and Kennedy Stewart, who's the NDP candidate, took the pledge. And afterwards, Kennedy Stewart sparked a parliamentary debate about the status of science in Canada. So you can catch the entire press conference on our YouTube channel. But I bring it up because I think this is a great showcase of how, through our collaborative efforts, the pledge has potential to really put science and smart decision-making on the map during this election. So now that we're in the official election period, we're no longer focusing on getting candidates to take the pledge, because that's a little tricky after the writs drop. The focus of this campaign now, and what we're urging you to do, is to get individuals and organizations to take the pledge. We want you to show to Canadians that we collectively care about science, and to candidates, and that you'll be voting for those who support science. We've already seen a great response to the pledge. Over 60 organizations and 80 candidates have taken it, and I think our count since we last held this broadcast is now up to 2,000 citizens, so that's fantastic. And like it says on the slide, Margaret Atwood is one of them. So we're off to a great start, and we want to capitalize on this momentum, and that's where you come in. So I'll now turn it over to Sue, who, like Suman mentioned, is our key lead on this, and she'll tell you more about how you can help us with the Science Pledge campaign.
Okay, thanks, Axa. So the next few slides are to outline some ways that you can help raise the profile of science as an important election issue. And we've invited you here because we know you care about the issue, and we would like you to consider becoming a Science Pledge ambassador, just like me. But I haven't been one very long, so it's all at the beginning. It's easy. Just asking your friends or family to take the pledge, but if you choose, you can take it further and include asking organizations and candidates in your area to do the same. You can work independently, or you can team up with other friends or other colleagues. You can do it all via email, or you can get out on the street and hand out postcards or put up posters. For me, I love to meet people, so next week when Frosh Week starts, I'll be out with some postcards and putting up posters around the university to try and get the students to take the pledge. So basically, in a nutshell, a Science Pledge ambassador is someone or a group of people standing up for science and informed decision-making by getting as many people or organizations as possible to take the Science Pledge. So the first step to being a Science Pledge ambassador is to take the Science Pledge yourself, and many of you may have already done this, so thank you. For those of you who haven't, it's super easy. You can see up on the slide right now if you go to sciencepledge, all one word, .ca, so sciencepledge.ca, you can fill out the form, and this is a screenshot of the form. So you can do that now if you haven't already done it, or you can do it later. So this form provides us with an electronic, an automatic record of everyone who has signed the pledge electronically, which is great for us to have. So taking the pledge is the first step, but if we really want to make science an informed decision-making on an election issue, we need to get others to do the same, and I know that you can do it. This is the key role of a Science Pledge Ambassador. So here's an example of how easy this can be and how a little ambassadoring can have a huge effect. So here's Jane, who, like all of us, wants science and informed decision-making an election issue, and she just happens to be a Science Pledge Ambassador. Jane is a student at the university, but she also has a part-time job in a not-for-profit. Jane asked her professor, Amy, to take the Science Pledge, and then asked her to also put up a slide in her classes that she teaches to encourage her students to also take the pledge. Easy, right? She then asks her coworker, Patrick, at the not-for-profit she works for, to take the pledge and encourages him to tell others about the pledge. She may even ask the organization as a whole to take the pledge, or she might want to continue to ask a few more co-workers and get a team together to ask the organization. You don't have to do this alone. You can do it as a team or with a partner. So you see how this can begin to snowball quite quickly. Here's another way to raise the profile. Jane's a member of the Graduate Students Association at her university. She asked Adam, an executive member of the association, to sign the pledge, and then she suggests that he challenge other graduate student associations across Canada to take the pledge as well. So you can make it into a little bit of a challenge. And a last example, and there's many others, but this is just a last one. Jane tutors for an after-school program at her local community center, and she asked the chair of the programming committee if she can deliver a short presentation at the next general members meeting. So Jane does a short presentation that brings both some printed brings both some printed pledge forms, because you can print them off the website, and some postcards with her, so people can sign up right away, or they can take the postcard home and they have the sciencepledge.ca link on the form. So the example of Jane can be applied to any given person. You can think of each color as a different aspect of your life. For me, the green might be the community of people in the housing co-op I live in. Orange might be the students in my lab or on my floor in the biology building. Purple is all my Facebook friends. And pink is the teachers at the school where I volunteer to do hands-on science with kids. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to become a Science Pledge Ambassador, and Agent Suman will now run through a few gadgets we have in store for you.
Thanks, Sue. Can everybody hear me okay? Just nod if you can. Great. So now that you have a sense of what being an ambassador entails, I'm going to go over some of the tools that we've created to help you. These tools are pretty basic, and you can use them to be as involved as you'd like to be when you're being an ambassador. So, next slide, please, Alexa. Thank you. So step one, as Sue mentioned, is to sign the pledge. I know we've had some people mention, when they were concerned whether the information would be kept private and confidential. It is. We only publish, so when people sign the pledge as individuals, that information doesn't get published, but if you're an organization or a candidate, we do put that up on our website. Just let us know if you'd rather we don't do that. Anyways, once you've signed the pledge, the second step is to sign up to become an ambassador. And that's what this screenshot is. You can find that on our website. Basically go to Get Involved and then click on the Science Pledge Ambassador section. Alternatively, if you go and sign the Science Pledge, it will ask you if you'd like to be an ambassador, and it'll take you right to this page when you click on it. When you do sign up, it would be helpful for us to know or get a sense of how you envision being involved. You can choose to be as involved as you like and are capable. Some of you may only feel comfortable approaching your family members or work colleagues about this, while others may want to organize flash mobs, go door knocking, etc. There really is a broad spectrum to the degree at which you can choose to be involved. Once you've signed up, we will give you the Ambassador's Toolkit, which is easy to use and essentially gives you ideas and information you can use to amplify your pledge. So what is in this toolkit exactly?
We put together some items, but we're keen to get your feedback since you will be the ones on the ground implementing these ideas. If something doesn't work, we want to know. If something works really well, we'd like to know that as well, so we can encourage others to use that tool or idea that was found to have a high success rate. So one of the items we place in the toolkit is sample text for emails and social media, which you can see in the next slide. The text of the email and social media post is pretty simple. They're here for guidance. You can use these bits of text as is, or you can modify as you see fit. The hashtags are particularly powerful as they're consistent with the ones being used for the upcoming election, so we do encourage you to use them when you make social media posts. I think a lot of us know that social media can be a really powerful tool for getting a message out, and we have a pretty neat example of how that has worked for us at E4D. Next slide, please, Axel. So here's a story from before the Brit had been dropped in terms of social media. Maria Curran, our fundraising and communications coordinator, who's actually live tweeting this broadcast and collating questions, she reached out to a federal candidate from back home through Facebook to encourage her to take the science pledge. A few days later, this candidate, Katrina Gold, tweeted that she had taken the pledge. It's pretty exciting. Social media clearly is a really easy way to engage with federal candidates, and I really encourage you to do that when possible. And another really exciting example, so you guys have noticed, we mentioned Margaret Atwood already a few times. What happened here is Katie Gibbs reached out to Margaret Atwood on Twitter after Margaret Atwood had made a tweet about the need for a national debate on science. Katie jumped on that opportunity to direct her to the Science Pledge, and that same day, Margaret Atwood took the pledge and tweeted it out to all of her followers, which is well over 800,000 people. It's pretty amazing. If you're listening to this, Atwood, thank you so very much. As you can imagine, everyone at E4D is pretty well geeking out over this. Some other items in the toolkit include postcards and posters, and we have some examples on the next slide. So I love that little moose, poor guy. Here are some examples of some of the posters and postcards that we will make available to you. The Science Pledge poster on the right is a great way of directing people to the Science Pledge website, and you can print it out as flyers and put it up, or posters, and just like put in people's mailboxes or paste it everywhere. We can have it available to you as color or black and white. The postcard to the left will actually have questions on the back side that you can use to talk to your local federal candidates about science. It's a pretty neat tool. You can actually just have it by your front door. So if a candidate does come knocking, you can just grab this card and you're all set to engage with them. You can see some of the questions. They'll be on the back of this postcard on the next slide. So some of the questions, for example, are, how will you and your party restore open and transparent communication between government scientists and the public? How will you appoint a science advisor who reports directly to Parliament? How will you provide sufficient funding for research that ensures the safety and health of Canadians and the environment? These are all really important questions, I think, and a lot of us who are here, who come to this broadcast, it's something we care about. These are the questions we want these candidates to answer. Another component of the toolkit is to provide you with materials and support so you can plan events, especially for those of you who choose to be involved in a bigger capacity. A really neat opportunity coming up is Science Literacy Week, which is the last week of September. It's rather fortunate. It's a few weeks before the election, so we can use this time to raise literacy about the importance of science and democracy and policy making. I'd like to talk about two specific events that we've been talking about over here at E4D that we think would be a great way to help raise the profile of science and evidence-based decision making during Science Literacy Week. These are events that can happen across the country. All we need is people on the ground helping to plan the events. So the events that I mentioned that we've envisioned are called Vote Science 101 and Talk Science. Both of these events would be particularly good for a campus event, especially Vote Science 101. Vote Science 101, you can sort of call it organizing for scientists or organizing for researchers. So it's basically teaching scientists and other researchers how to organize and be politically active, particularly in relation to the upcoming election. A lot of scientists and researchers are very uncomfortable being political. That's not something that we're used to doing, but in the climate, political climate that we've been in, a lot of scientists are being pushed to be more involved in this, and they just need a little helping hand sometimes. So because this event will be largely geared towards researchers and grad students, it would be particularly great as a campus event, like I said. To make it happen, you could approach your student association or even a student club to help plan the event and we'll provide you with PowerPoint and other support as needed. And during this event, you can take the time to brainstorm with the attendees about how to engage with other community members around Science Pledge, and you can also take the time here to brainstorm and plan for a Talk Science event, which is what I'm going to discuss next. Talk Science is basically a science cafe, but local federal candidates will be invited to come and engage with community members so that they can discuss their stance on the importance of science and evidence-informed decision-making. As I said, you can either use Vote Science 101 as an opportunity to recruit people to help plan a Talk Science event, or you can just skip the Vote Science 101 event and go straight to planning a Talk Science event. Other than Vote Science 101 and Talk Science, Science Literacy Week, generally speaking, is a great opportunity to get creative around pushing the pledge. Apologies, I think I'm just missing something here. So just wanted to say that Science Literacy Week, even if you are only able to plan a little tiny event, it all adds up. The message we're trying to get across, the big story we're trying to show is that people across, communities across Canada care about science. So even if you feel like, I can't put together a big event, it'll only be like my family members, it'll only be like a few campus club events, that's still great because all these events we can put together and showcase how important this issue is. Okay, some of the events that I kind of skipped over here. You can have a pledge party, which basically an informal coffee and snacks event for your department, lab or teammates, and have everyone sign the pledge. You can have a flash mob. I'm not really sure how. A lot of people are very creative with these sorts of things. And so if you're very theatrically inclined, you have some fun drawing attention to the importance of science and evidence and what happens when policy and political decisions are made that ignore science and evidence. Door knocking is another option. It's not for the faint of heart, but it can be a lot of fun. Something I should mention that we're going to be putting out a press release during that week to talk about all the events that will be happening. So the more events we have, the better, because it'll make for a much more powerful story and have a greater impact. So again, like every contribution is important, and even if you think they're small, they're not. It really is worthwhile. So that's a quick intro to the components of the Ambassadors Toolkit, which will change and get bigger over time as we gain new ideas and get feedback from everyone using it. And we do want your feedback. We want to know what works, what doesn't, what sorts of tools would be helpful to have, etc. Every one of you is likely to approach being an ambassador in a way that is unique to you, unique to your network and your community, and the toolkit could be lacking in resources that you need. So if that's the case, you want to know that, and we want to be able to remedy that. So that's it from my end. I'm looking forward to getting to know those of you who decide to don the cap of Science Pledge Ambassador. And I think we've got some minutes left for questions, so I'll turn things over to Katie.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, Suman, and thanks to Suman and Sue and AXA for telling us a little bit about what we've been doing so far and all about the Science Pledge and how you can help. I do want to say again, this is our very first broadcast that we're doing to everybody, so we want to hear your feedback. We want to know how we can make it even better next time and hear about what you liked this time. So I do have a few questions here, but there's still time to email in your questions if you have some. And I do want to just follow up too on what Suman said. Science Literacy Week is really, that's where we're putting a lot of energy. So we already have a few amazing volunteers are already putting together some pretty great events for that week. And so, this is really about how, each of you organizing something in your communities, whether it is big or small, it all kind of feeds into together. So what we'll do that week is put out a press release that really says, scientists and the research community all across this country are organizing to make science an election issue more than they've ever done before. And so every additional event helps make that story and that narrative even stronger. So even if it's just something little, I'm sure that everyone listening can organize something for that week. So a few questions we have so far. Someone wanted to know if there's going to be another rally, either one rally or multiple rallies before the election. We did think about doing that, and we decided not to. Partly because we've already done the rallies twice. So we did the Death of Evidence rally, and then followed up with the Stand Up for Science rallies. So we kind of felt like that has been done, that point has been made, and so that's where we're trying to transition more to empowering scientists and research communities on the ground around the election. So that's really where these Vote Science 101 and Talk Science events come in. We'd rather put the energy into organizing those events than in doing a rally, so that it's sort of more community-based. It's you guys organizing locally around how you want to make this an issue, engaging your candidates directly. So we decided to do that instead of organizing a big rally. So that is one question. Another question is whether or not we are still doing Silence of the Lab screenings. So we have sort of officially kind of closed out that campaign. That said, we do still have the toolkit, we do still have the movie. So by all means, if you are interested in showing it, let us know and we can help you with that. But I do think, it was made about a year ago, so if you are planning on hosting a screening, we'd love for you to incorporate, a little bit more of the election focus with it as well. And we have a few people doing that already. So we have someone in Vancouver, for example, who is organizing a screening, and then they're having another one of E4D's amazing volunteers is going to be giving a talk about how people can engage in the election after the screening. So you definitely can still do it, but we will also try to incorporate a bit more of the election stuff.
I'm going to jump in just to add something to that, Katie. I actually think, and this is something we talked about in the previous broadcast, that using Silence of the Labs is a great sort of avenue to getting people to talk about the science pledge. So the main feedback we got from people who organized screenings was everybody that attended said, well, what's next? What more can I do? How can I actually go and organize something on my own or create impact? And I think Science Pledge is the way to do it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Axa. It's basically sort of a tool that you can use as a way to go out and talk to people in your community about these issues. One other question that someone asked is, they asked for clarification around whether or not, around how to engage candidates now that we are no longer sort of targeting them directly for the Science Pledge. And so I thought that was worth talking about in a bit more detail. So we had been targeting MPs before the official election period started, but once the writ dropped and we started the official election period, a lot of the parties and candidates decide that they just don't want to sign on to any official pledges during the election period because of part of what the Elections Canada Act says. So we've decided to put a pause on targeting candidates specifically. So the focus is on individuals and organizations, and you can still ask candidates to take the pledge as an individual, but we're no longer compiling a list of candidates on the website who have taken the pledge. So that's a bit of a change, but we are planning to actually start that up again after the election and work on getting all these new MPs to take the Science Pledge once they get into office. Let me see if there's any other questions. I also wanted to add too, just a little bit on what we've just done. So we still have a little bit of a few other exciting campaigns coming out that we didn't mention yet. So we're working on a voting report card that sort of assesses how MPs and parties have voted on science-based motions over the last 4 years. So that's going to be sort of like a report card looking back on the track record of MPs and parties. And then we have also, just last week, we submitted a science policy questionnaire to all the parties asking for some more detail on what they're proposing. Yeah, that slide is up now. So we've submitted that policy questionnaire to all the parties just last week, and we'll be releasing those results in September as well. So it's going to be really exciting to get some more detail on where all the parties stand. I'm just taking a scan right now on Twitter to see if there's any other questions. So Dawn asks if the Science Pledge Ambassador and Science Literacy Week stuff will be available online. Absolutely. So they're on the main Science Pledge page. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's actually a link to another page that is the Science Pledge Ambassador sign up. So if you're at all interested in being an ambassador, and again, you know, this can be as little as emailing your friends and family, or it can be, you know, taking on the organizing of an event. If you're at all interested, enter your contact info there and sign up to be an ambassador. And then Suman and the E4D team will be following up with you to, you know, see what you're planning on doing, see if you need any help, and we will be sending you the toolkit. And what Dawn was asking is if that toolkit, I think if the toolkit and the webinar will be available online. And absolutely, so both this webinar itself and the actual toolkit, which is going to be the package of documents that has like posters and everything, will be available online. And we also are going to have some, you know, actual materials that we can send out to volunteers who want it. So we have amazing buttons, we have actual like printed, nice color printed postcards, and maybe some other swag as well that we can throw in. So, you know, we really see this as we're here to help you. We just want to sort of support you guys in what you want to do in your communities to make this an issue. So it's really, you know, a two-way thing. We want to hear from you as well on what it is that you need from us and what tools we can provide to you. Did anyone else have anything to add? I think that's all of the questions in my inbox. Oh, there was one question about posters. How does somebody get the posters if they want to distribute them? So the posters will mostly be making available online. So it will be as a document that you can download from the website and then print yourself locally. And the smaller postcards are ones that we'll actually have already made that we can mail out to you. Yeah, so again, if you want to get alerted to when that comes out, you can sign up to be a Science Pledge ambassador, and we will send you the poster and all the other material. Anything else from anyone else? No? All right. Well, then I will just say again, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any more questions, you can email Suman at Evidence for Democracy or myself, Katie at Evidence for Democracy. And, you know, again, this was our very, very first broadcast open to everybody, and so we are so thankful that you have joined us this evening, and we want to hear from you. Was it useful? What would you change? What would you like to see? You know, we really do take that feedback and use it, so please send it our way. And we hope to continue to work with you to make science an election issue this time around. All right, have a good night, everyone.